Well, I'm excited, Canadian to Canadian. Welcome, Rob, to the Leaders Who Care series. I'm super happy that we have you joining us.
It's absolutely my pleasure and honor, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, eh? I got to say that at least one time.
What do you say?
What do you say? What's you hoser, eh? All that stuff, right?
That's old stuff. I love that. Yeah.
No, we won't go there. But no, it's a pleasure that that we're aligned, as I think people will see a lot from this conversation, as organizations and as people in your organization and ours, and trying to share that mindset with this series where we're talking to people who do realize that you can have an economic and social benefit at the same time, even better if you do it that way. So great place to start would be if you could briefly introduce yourself. Don't tell the whole story because then I won't have anything else to talk about.
Okay.
But
My
just
name is
tell us
Rob
a little bit about, yeah, exactly. Just tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you are now, your family, things like that, and maybe something really intimate that you haven't told anybody ever, and now you want to tell us what it is or whatever.
Okay,
But
Mark. Okay.
Start with that.
So my name is Rob Follows. As Mark, you mentioned, I'm Canadian way back. I was born in Montreal and then moved to Toronto. My dad was in the packaging machinery business. I was very proud to be president of the Canadian Packaging Association. And he turned around one day when I was 17 and said, "Okay, son, you're taking over the family business. You know you're going to start training now," because I was writing essays up at the office, in his office. The reason I was doing that, Mark, is because if I went to the library at university, I would, end up socializing because there were lots of pretty girls in the library. So he thought I was up there because I love the business. And when he said, "You got to take over the family business," I was honest. I said, "I can't stand the smell of machines. I'm not interested in machines, Dad." And my younger brother's been in, taking machine shop and all of that. So my younger brother's the guy. He said, "No, you don't understand. You're the oldest son. If you don't take over the family business, you're thrown out of this family right now. Financially, you're done." And he made a bill out. Back then, the interest rates were in the early 80s, 18%.
Yeah.
And he said, "You owe me $20,000 for a bunch of things that apparently, and you'll come crawling back because you get an 18% interest rate." So I went out and got and net that gave birth to an entrepreneur, because I was hell bent on the fact that I was going to pay for my own school and I wasn't going to go back to my dad. And there's no way I was going to work for him. Pride is a vice, by the way. I wish I would have been a little bit smarter about the way I handled that, because I kind of got whacked there. Yeah. And so loved academics, went to school and to be even then a white male trying to get into law school, which I wanted to do, was really hard. So I worked, because I was working in the arts side. And so, I had to I remember I got 100% in sociology, but that's what you had to do in order to get into law school back then. Because there was a lot of First Nation slots and all that. So went through during one of the summers when I was making money to get back to school. I ran into a business, Mark, and it was an advertising marketing business. I was living in Banff, Alberta, Canada. And I joined that business. I won't get into the details. I moved it to Toronto because I was going to University of Toronto, a branch of it. And that became what became the basis of the largest independent marketing services below the line firm in Canada. I grew that myself. Everybody kept saying, "Where's your dad?" And I was like, "Well, he'll be here in a minute. Just sign the contract," because, I owned the company, but I was in my 20s, all of my 20s. By the time free trade came along, a whole bunch of my friends that were really smart guys who were working consulting with free trade said, "You're going to get crushed. You need to get on a plane, go down and see the biggest players in your marketplace." And that's how the next chapter of my life started. I have kids. I started my family late. They're 5, 9, 14, and 17. I live in different cities, but my main two are in Barbados, which is has 40 different tax treaties, so really competitive advantage at M&A, which we can talk about later, and in Whistler, British Columbia, which you're all welcome to come visit. It's a great place to be in the mountains.
Yeah, I would vouch to anybody to take that offer because it's beautiful there in the winter or the summer. It's beautiful there. So now that's really interesting story, obviously. And I was wondering, In that whole process as a kid, were you like, if you remember Michael J. Fox when he was on that show Family Ties, he was always interested in money and investing and stuff. Was that ever in your mind, or was it more
No,
just?
but no, I wasn't like that. And I feel like I should teach my kids that. But I like them to, but no, let me answer the question. I was not like that. But I wanted to be independent. So my first job, as with many of us, was having three paper routes. I had the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, and the Mississauga News in my area. And so I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning delivering papers, and doing them in the afternoon again. Um, and then we had a snow shelving and lawn cutting business when I was 12. We called it B&F Seasonal Services, Burns and Follows, Trevor Burns and myself. And we actually would hire a whole bunch of our students from our class at 50 cents an hour and get $10 a contract. We usually would have, $6, $7 left over per contract. So per week. So we that's all turned into First Service and all those big businesses now. But back then there was nobody doing it. So that's what I got started with and learned along the way some lessons in owning your own business.
Well, it's interesting because those were effectively service businesses where you took care of the customer and made them happy. It reminds me, this is going to show some age. I delivered the TV guides when they were
Yeah,
small to
I
people.
remember.
And
Yeah.
there was one lady that gave me a tip that was more than the cost of the TV guide every week. And I'll talk about influencers later, but just the kindness and the way she did it and recognizing me for my hard work made a difference to me. Just that one time, that incident. So it's interesting. You talked about your education. Also, you got your bachelor's degree, you got a law degree, you got your master's in advanced strategy at Oxford. Um, on your journey, I know you've talked about this a little bit. You sold your advisory business for a large multiple, and yet more so what you learned with that transaction, even though it was a large multiple. Can you talk about that?
Oh, sure. So to extend the story I was mentioning before, with free trade coming along, I talked to some of my dad's friends that were strategy consultants and hired one of them, Tom Crow is his name, to take me to see Carlson Marketing in Minneapolis, BI in Minneapolis, who was a major competitor, and Merritt's Inc. in St. Louis, because I needed somebody with gray hair. I mean, I wasn't even 30 years old yet, and and who knew his way around. I respected him. So he said, it's going to cost you a lot of money, Rob. So and when we got to Merritt's in St. Louis, there was 4 exits off the highway, 4 exits for the one company. And so he said, Rob, why don't you want to grow this yourself? And I said, actually, I don't, Tom. That's not what motivates me. And I'll talk about Bill Merritt's later, but Bill Merritt's, who I met there, spent 90% of his time on philanthropy, Mark, 90% of his time. And he was on the Fortune 50, the Fortune 500 list as the number 50 on the list. And so he was a very, very successful guy. He'd grown his business from 50 million to 3 billion. His father had given him at 50 million. So I'll talk about him as an influencer later, but he basically said, he ended up in my warehouse up in Mississauga, and I was not paying for the inventory. So he's standing in all these shelves that go right to the ceiling, stacked with inventory as far as you can see. And he's like, these aren't on. There's no inventory on your balance sheet, and I've never seen this before. What are you doing? And I said, well, Bill, with the deepest of respect, you're a billionaire and I'm not. So this is, and then I stopped and I said, I'll tell you what, Bill, let's make a bet. I'll bet you 10 million bucks that this is absolutely clean. And I can teach you something about getting your clients to finance your inventory, especially when it's stuff for their own programs. And he looked at me and said, I don't know if I'm going to take that bet. And I told him the whole 10 million would go to charity, all of it. And because that's what I was going to do with a bunch of the proceeds anyway. And he looked at me and he said, son, I think we're going to do business together. um, and that's how the deal got made, where they paid 27 times EBITDA for my business, which I was thrilled with. Back then, you got a check, a big check, and everybody was riding around in limousines back then because that's what they did when you were doing an M&A transaction, because there was drinking involved. And so I bought champagne for the whole restaurant. Was called Collett's Cupboard in Burlington, Ontario that night. And I was so happy until I got to Merritt's 2 years later. and got to open my own file because I was doing international work. And there was a deal in Italy, Mark, that looked just like mine. And here's the headline: they would have paid 100 times EBITDA for my business, and it was signed off by the CFO at the time. And I was just beside myself. I left 75% of the money on the table. I'd also lost $5 million on the last dinner because I thought everything was, the I's were dotted and T's were crossed up in the boardroom. And so I had a dinner on Bay Street, and I wasn't properly advised. I couldn't find somebody to help advise me. And I should have gotten the 100 times EBITDA. It was approved. I didn't. So how do entrepreneurs get, as we'll talk about in a bit, the real value of their business? You've got to understand the perspective of the buyer, which comes from having been a buyer before and understanding that. But also, you can't do it yourself, Mark. You've got to be represented. I learned those two lessons in my own transaction.
Yeah, well, we try to focus a lot on not years of experience, but actual experiences that make the difference. And so it sounds like that one made a difference for you for sure. We founded Fifth Element on the basic that leaders and their businesses can do even way better when they are doing good, like you were talking about. Can you share with us how you also realized that the value, like the economic value, the social value, is by assisting clients how to maximize their exits with a strategic sale, and at the same time how it flows down even to their families, to the community, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Yeah. Well, STS stands for Success to Significance, which is one of our trademarks, through selling to strategics. And so most of the financial markets, whether it's Wall Street in the US, Bay Street in Canada, the City of London in England, or in Brussels, everybody there has been trained, as we learned, on a brokerage model where you're trading and you're looking for the value, and you're pushing out against the value. And that's what all the private equity firms do. They're saying it's 3 to 5 times, 5 to 7 times EBITDA, and they're training us in the marketplace that this is a good number. When in fact it has nothing to do with EBITDA if you're selling to a strategic. And so the first step in helping people create more legacy from the STS standpoint is to help them understand that if they sell to a strategic directly and not to the middlemen, financial private equity guys, that they will get 200 to 300% more, and they'll get better terms and conditions. So that's how we start creating philanthropic and impact capital, Mark, for clients. Whereas we share with them, like I was talking to somebody yesterday, he said, I'm done. I wanted to wait till $300 million valuation, but I'm probably worth, I don't know, 80 million now. I'm just done. I want to sell it now. And I've already got a buyer and I'm going to see them next week. And so I said, his name is Mike, please stop and realize that if they're offering you 80, you're worth probably 160, 150, they're starting off low. And you can't represent yourself. And so to help people realize that selling to a strategic is about the integrated value of their business, Mark, not about an EBITDA multiple. And to understand how that works and how strategic buyers think can create so much upside that anybody can choose to give, because we're not taking it with us when we die, to give to something that really matters to them. And that's our success to significance. So we believe very much in helping families and entrepreneurs, and we have lots of resources we offer, Mark, for free to our clients, or they contract directly with them, where they'll advise them on, or help them, first of all, figure out what's really going to be passionately inspiring for them to help make the world a better place. And we don't direct them any one place. It's whatever their heart feels is, where they want to give and where they think they want to support. And then we make that happen with a strategic transaction so that they've got the extra proceeds to go help make the world a better place and have meaning and purpose after, and not just for them, but for their children. We had one of our clients sell. He had a $30 million offer. We ended up getting him over 500 million. His project was called Project Quattro because he was doing it for his 4 adopted kids and for all the charities that they believed in. And so those are really great opportunities that humble us to be able to help clients facilitate helping make the world a better place and being a catalyst to more philanthropic capital. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it answers it amazingly. And in part of our business where we get retained to help clients make an impact, but also help them attract talent who wants to work in organizations or companies where you can make money and make a difference too. But one of the things I think you recognize really well is this is the founder's baby. This is like they own, I mean, it's more than, it's a business deal, but there's also some emotion involved. And they want somebody not just take their company and wreck it or put it on the shelf or whatnot. It's their, you're giving the baby to the babysitter type of thing.
Yes. Yeah. It's a big responsibility, but it's fun. I mean, when you know what you're doing and you can actually maximize, you know, you're going to maximize value for the family, and it's going to create upside that they can help make the world a better place with. It's just a wonderful opportunity to serve. And people that join our firm, I was out talking to a lot of people in New York last week, and some of them were saying, you know, we really want to join your firm. And I said, well, the first stop is values. Do you really believe in creating billions of dollars new philanthropic capital and protecting families and entrepreneurs from the ravages of the financial industry that wants to buy low to sell high to somebody else later? If you share those values and you care deeply about helping entrepreneurs and families get the full value and make an extraordinary exit happen, then you can join STS. But you also need to be willing to help them create philanthropic capital if they want. You know, they don't all want to, Mark, but well over 50% do. And that's a huge contribution we're very, very happy to help them make.
Yeah, I've seen in my time founders of companies turn down better deals because it's not just a matter of liking the other one, it's where they're going to take their company, how much strategic, obviously the sale is, but if unless it's a massive amount of difference in offer, they'll prefer to go to the one that really cares about their company.
Right. Right, exactly. And so you're speaking to something that's very important to us, and that is required versus preferred outcomes. We've got required outcomes. They've got to care about the employees that come, about the customers, and then preferred outcomes. You know, yes, we'd like more money, but these required outcomes have to be covered. And we love to see clients who want to see their team looked after, their clients looked after, and their community supported.
Yeah, it makes total sense. You know, we're also aligned on nonprofits and the opportunity for people to sit on boards of nonprofits.
Yeah.
Share with us how UltraVest has a focus on this and including advising CEOs on philanthropy.
Well, UltraVest is first of all is an independent foundation. It's a charity itself, and UltraVest stands, as you'd expect, for altruistic investments. And we founded it after I sold my business. I sold my business to start the charity, to help people realize that they can, as business and professional leaders, really help charities, and they can help them help them create more value and give more to their causes. And so that's why UltraVest was created, because to be really open, the first $100,000 I gave to a charity that will remain nameless, zero got to the cause. I was very, very upset about that, Mark. And instead of getting cynical and saying I'm not going to give to charities anymore, we created a SWAT team that would go in and help them from the consulting arm of Merritt's. And Bill Merritt's was totally supportive of that. He had like 28 PhDs on his team. And we sent teams in to figure out, you know, how can we help you get better? And that turned into our board match program. So our board match program is scalable, and it's helping, and we're really looking to scale it up. It really developed, Mark, in Toronto. We placed 5,000, and we did this for free to help charities, small, mid-sized charities that can't afford to pay fees. And so we help them get ready to bring in board members and understand they're going to have an open book now, and they're going to have to separate the CEO and the chair roles as in business, and really set up governance so it's clear what they're doing, and donors would appreciate that and give them more money. And they'll run more using business terms more efficiently and effective, but using their terms, they can give more to their causes. And so that's what UltraVest does a lot of. We are going to contribute UltraVest to the world, and we'd love to work with you in that area, Mark. And when we find large charities that can actually pay, we'd love to refer them to you to find them some great board members.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. And you know what? You know, we have an expression called OmniWin. The board members that are going on nonprofits, it's kind of like Christmas. You know, you love giving more than getting type of thing. And you do good things happen when you do good things like that. You know, just because people appreciate people that are doing good, and you get into a relationship and you want to work with those people, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not even rocket science, but you know, people have to understand that it does work. And I want to ask you something else also, though. There's a reason we work with leaders who care. There's also I use a lot of comparisons of business and sports, and and the foundation of the word team when it comes to executives and building leadership. You've done a lot of, I would say, relatively extreme adventures in your time,
Yeah.
like Everest, for one
Yeah.
small example,
Yeah.
or you've been to
It's a
both
cool one.
poles, you've been to deserts. I'm waiting till I have a client I want to introduce you that is actually has a business about humans living on Venus. So
Oh,
maybe that's your
wow.
next step. I don't know. But can you compare those activities with running a business, building teams, advising
Yeah.
people, so
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I built a speech around it, where I talk about the 7 lessons from the 7 summits, because we came the first amateur couple, Katrina Sandling and I, climbing the 7 summits, which we didn't know we set out. That wasn't our goal, but it was a great experience. And so there's a lot of parallels. One of them is preparation. Obviously, when you're preparing to, and that's so planning is the same in doing a big adventure as it is developing a business. So you've got to lay the plan out and completely visualize it and be able to be clear on all the steps that you're going to be taking and know when you're going to be getting there in each step. And that's, I would say, the first thing that's a parallel. The second is discipline and preparation. You've got to stay on your plan. You've got to stay focused, and you've got to, in our case, work out every day. We worked out every day for 3 years, and I remember one time I was doing a Stairmaster, and my buddy Len Stanmore, I climbed Everest with, he and I were racing on some Stairmasters, and we were going every day, so we got pretty good at it. We broke the Stairmaster. We went so fast. Mine broke first, and then his broke. They were not very happy in the gym, but that's how fit we got, because you got to be fit, you know. And my wife says, "Wow, I wish I was around then." I'm not that fit now. I mean, I'm reasonably fit. That execution, getting the best advice is a third one. I recommend that people go and find the best person in the world, Mark, when they're going out for something new. People that have been there and done that are willing to take the time if you ask them. And people come and say to me, I really need your time just for 10 minutes to help me understand X that you've done. I'll always contribute that, and I'm sure you will. And so asking the best that you can find in the world. And so I called and spoke to, the 7 summits, if you're in real mountaineering, there's the 8,000-meter peaks. There's 15 of those are like the next level. So I called the guys that had done those, and that was interesting, and called people that had done the 7 summits, and their advice was, yes, you can do this, but you have to take this first step now. Don't wait another month. Don't wait even a week. You're going to keep thinking about this. And I think that's a great lesson. If you got a big goal, make sure you've got the path, and you're on the right path, but take that first step, because your fear inside you, which leads to another, the seventh of my 7 lessons, which comes from Everest, being on the Kangshung face, up on the Kangshung face, comes up onto the edge of between the South Col and the summit of Everest. And it's a razor's edge there. And it's a 10,000 foot, we call it a 1 bounce drop down the right side, and a 2 bounce drop down the left side. And so when you get stuck there, it's an emotional thing. It's fear. Like the fear rushes in because your subconscious trying to protect you. Like, what are you doing up here? You shouldn't be up here.
Right.
And look, that's a long drop, brother. And if anybody trips, you got long crampons on, you trip on your pants leg and you're gone. And so there's no ropes up there. And so at the very top. And so fear sets in. And in all of these cases, when you're doing something big and new and fear sets in, I think that the learning from there is the same in business or in doing big initiatives, Mark. And that is, you assess where you are. Is this fear like valid? Am I really going to die? I don't think so. And then look at the vision of what it is you said you were going to do. And then be clear on what the next step is and take that step, push through your fear and take that step. And that I think is one of the biggest learnings from the 7 summits, because fear is one of the biggest challenges in life for people. And many of us, I'm very in touch with my fear after all the work I've done, and not just mountaineering, but getting into the subconscious. But a lot of people aren't aware of their fear, Mark. And if they knew that it was fear, they just had to push through it, they would do it. And so identifying what's holding you back and fear from doing something really big, I think is a great lesson, and push through it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I learned from coaches about visualization, and also arguing with my own brain who's trying to stop me from doing something,
Yeah.
and telling it to leave me alone. I'm going.
Yeah,
And because it really does try to protect you. It's brilliant and it's real.
yeah,
It's very real.
yeah,
So, and last thing on this part, I wanted to ask, we put a lot of value with our clients on well-being and leaders who care about the financial, the physical, the mental well-being of their talent
yeah,
and how much it affects it. And we also have done studies where we've read where they say the people who live the longest and healthiest, they live in blue zones. And
right,
the thing that fills the hearts and souls of people more than anything is belonging somewhere.
right,
So
right.
would you say you're in the business of improving people's lives by making them feel that they're in a community with you, they're in someone they can with someone they can trust, and it also impacts beyond them, it impacts their family, the communities, etc.
Yeah. Well, we believe very, very much that people that are going to go through an exit in their business on the STS side need to be really thoughtful about what's going to be happening after their exit. So they're part of a community, Mark, as you're describing, and it's usually their business. They're also they have a lot of identity there because they're the president or the owner of the company. And often, if it's not well planned, when they hit that point of selling, they can have a cliff of purpose they drop off and be quite sad. And that is something that we work really hard to help people with is community and meaning and focus and legacy after the sale, which brings even more heightened and radiant life purpose as opposed to the light bulb going off. And so you're part of a community in your business community in your business, you're part of the team as you're moving towards the sale, you're part of a bigger team as you're going through the process of the sale. And then when it drops off, we're really working with our clients to make sure that they're setting up post sale community where they're doing something that's really important. They bring their leadership to helping make the world a better place if that's what they want to do. Some people want to get a big yacht and sail around the world, but they usually come back and then want to do something.
Yeah,
And I have to say, quite a few people do join STS because we like experts in industries and they can become advisors to us. Sorry, Mark.
it's brilliant, and it also aligns with us because it's not really retirement, it's more like the next chapter. And
Right.
you're making it like there is a community. They're not just, oh, now what do I do type of thing. But they
Yeah.
can really make another impact in one way or another, and helping them move to that and making it some other impact type of thing.
Yeah.
So last question on here is a client once told me, it was in 2021. He said the year 2020, Mark, was like, it seemed like it was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought that
Yeah.
was like a crazy statement, but it was true. And then 2021 and now 2022 have gone like zooming by,
Yeah.
zooming almost literally. Here we are, zooming.
Yeah.
And
That's
so, with all that
right.
said, and where we're going to 2023, first of all, what are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
Well, that's a great question. I'm very, very grateful for my health. When you have your health, you have lots of other goals. If you're not healthy, Mark, you're regaining your health is your only goal. And so I always remember every day to be thankful. Our kids are not allowed to start eating their dinner until they're when we're home, until they say what they're grateful for. And so my health, I'm very thankful my mind works as well as it does, and I hope it'll continue. Very thankful for our leadership team, both in our foundation and in our firm. They really do the work of keeping going every single day and exceeding client expectations, meeting client sat expectations. I'm very thankful for my family. They're just a riot. I mean, we have a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, 14 and 19, and we have lots of guests that come in and go, this is like crazy. It's not always positive. It mostly is, and it's a lot of fun. And Jenny and I am very deeply thankful for our relationship. I took a couple swings over the plate, and this is just the best relationship I could ever hope for. And so I'm very, very, very thankful and hopeful that our world will manifest itself into a vision of just a beautiful place for everybody that's here because there's lots of good in our world. And there's lots of people that are in darkness. And I just would love to see all of us go down a path together that's the right road, enjoying as you do and as I do this life to the fullest and helping make the world a better place. So that's my hope.
Yeah, and that could actually even start with just even a smile to someone you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Mark. Exactly. Yeah.
That's that first step you talked about, right? The first
Right.
step, smile at somebody, man.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I mean
well,
it.
I'm
I
I'm
mean it.
I'm super thankful and hopeful that you're one of the leaders who care for real, and much
Yes.
appreciated. And thanks so much for sharing that with everybody here. Appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you for your time, Mark. And if anybody wants to speak with me, I'm of course happy to catch up with anyone that reaches out. Mark, thank you for being you and being a caring leader yourself.
You got to leave it to those Canadians, right?
That's
Hey.
right. Amen.